Hey there, it's Chris. I just want to do a real quick recap on the Spartan Palmerton race that just occurred, well, earlier today. And unlike the Vernon race I went to just a couple months ago, I actually got some real hardware off of this one. It's one of those we needed a win. We finally got our win. So, and along that regard and along that line of thinking of the Vernon stuff, I keep a kind of quote book with me. Anytime I see a quote that seems interesting, I kind of keep it in mind or write it down. And one of the ones that's kind of high on the list is that in order to have credibility when I'm right, I have to admit when I'm wrong. And that's actually a Jim Cramer quote from like 2008 or something like that. But I know if anybody's watched my videos in the past, you've probably noticed I've been kind of a critic on a number of choices that Spartan made in that Vernon race that just didn't really sit well and I thought weren't planned out super well. Palmerton seemed to fix a lot of those issues. I think this was actually a really, really well run event. Now, they did have personnel issues, or rather, quantity of personnel issues. The people who were there seemed great. They were fine. I didn't have an issue with that. It did seem they had a quantity of personnel issues. Some, like the obstacles or aid stations, may have only been manned by one person, where usually they have two of that. And although my start time was, say, 7:15 in the morning, I was there really, really early. I was actually, I think, the fifth person in line on the day to register because I got there, or we had arrived at the registration table about 10 minutes before they opened at around 5:50. So if you came later on in the morning and your experience was something like this, with the lines that probably ranged from like an hour, hour plus, hour and a half, whatever they wound up being in the end to get into the course, your experience might be a little different. But again, that's a personnel issue. That's not a design issue. I think this was a really, really well designed race. And why do I say that over, say, the Vernon one? Well, A, they had a map, which was super helpful. Again, for a spectator friendly course like this, it's good to have that so they know what they can see. If you have people coming over, they want to go to take the chairlift up to the top of the hill to let them know what they're going to see at the top of the hill, even though they changed two of the obstacles up there. They still do, at least there was something there they could see. There was places to sit down. They had a tent with chairs, like the Adirondack chairs and the tables. If you were to like swap things out or get your equipment ready, you had a place to do it right there. You had the porta potties lining like the entire back wall, so you're not like having to go off to a corner like of the course to go and find those things. They're easily accessible. It's like just little things like that can make for a much better experience you can have in the day. And even just the obstacle layout wise, you go up and down the hill. They had that monkey in the middle, Olympus, Stairway to Sparta, a number of those like harder obstacles that if they had put those in the second half of the course, a lot of people are just going to walk right by those and not even try them because they're going to be exhausted, tired, just go, nope, not doing that. So putting those things early on is going to lead for more engagement in those types of obstacles. So stuff like that I think is really good. Except I will say that on the Olympus, just as a suggestion on the Olympus, if you have a day where it's going to be, say, predominantly raining, or it's the day before you know it's going to be predominantly wet out there, maybe you go and stick those little orange balls on the end of the chain part on Olympus so you can kind of lean back and get more friction on that wall. And then if you have a drier day, you can take those off and you can use that as a way to adjust how you can get your feet up on that wall. Because I'll be honest, when that thing's wet on a day like this where we just like it had downpoured like all of yesterday or some of yesterday, and then we have that mist in the morning all that whole time, that thing is slick as heck. And it's a little rough. I wasn't hearing that bell going off too often in the morning. A couple people got it, but not many people were. But no, other than that, then sticking, say, the water elements on the second half, even though I know they're kind of phasing out some of the water stuff, especially in the farm areas, which makes a lot of sense. But it's like having that lake walk and stuff, still having the ape hanger on the back half, is really, really good for a course like this. And at least giving yourself that rest time between the, say, the sandbag carry and then coming down and doing, say, ape hanger lets that ape hanger actually become its own event. You're not tired going into that one. You're not like as exhausted going into that one. So kind of little design things like that, just they do make a difference. It does make this work in ways that the Vernon one I don't think did as much. So I think they did a really, really good job as an event and just planning both the map and the event itself on that part. It's just a shame that registration wound up being what it was kind of in the end. But again, that's a problem I think they can solve with either incentivizing more people to come in. They'll find a way to solve the personnel issue. I can almost guarantee you they will find a way to solve that part. So if you were caught in that mess, it's going to be okay. I think that one will get better over time. That said, there were two other elements I'm going to go over. Mine, I did have a little bit of a rougher time on this course than I feel like I should have had, in that I had big plans after the Vernon to go, I'm going to train like crazy. It's going to be a good time. I'm going to go for this one. And then the second we get like that first, like, I don't know, 85, like 80, 85 kind of degree day, I'm working outside. I do construction. I'm working outside like that. Last thing I want to do is come home and do some more workouts after, especially we had like that 100-degree stretch going through. So I definitely didn't do as much on the workout side going into this as I probably should have. This happens every year. Summer happens, and once I start feeling these temperatures, it's like, there's a reason I tend to take summers off and train in the spring, fall, and winter. And so in addition to that, I didn't have enough nutrition going into this race, which led to energy loss halfway through. Before leaving for the course, I weighed myself. I was 161. When I got home after the race, I weighed myself again. And after the race had concluded, I had downed a full one of those Powerades, and we went out to eat, had burger, drink, fries, like kind of my usual post-race fare on that. And I had still dropped about 2 pounds from when I left in the morning. So I probably dropped over 5 pounds during the race. And I just didn't have enough me that I had built up during the week to make my way through that. So as a result, I did have 2 feelings of nausea kind of halfway through, just as we had made it up that second climb, and again right after that sandbag carry. So that did kind of hamper the running stuff I could have done on the back half. But yes, it made things harder, but at the same time, the obstacles actually worked out pretty well. Actually pretty good on that front. And you're going to see it later on. I put the video out of this race. That obstacles actually did go really, really well on this. So I was happy. It wasn't a clear completion, but it did go well. And the other element on this is if you had an early morning start time, your vision and the way you visualize this course is probably best encapsulated by the picture here that my family went and took when they're on the ski lift going up, which was not that one, but this one here. This is that is what the course was for like the first hour and a half. We're just like going through a cloud forest the whole way. You're 100% humidity because you're in a cloud. You're trying to sweat off. It's not doing anything. And made it up the first hill down, and it was kind of getting around the point to getting up the second hill the second time, and that finally started to kind of dissipate. But it was definitely one of those welcome to Jurassic Park kind of moments. It was a very surreal experience because I'm very much not used to seeing that at Palmerton. Every time I come here, it's always like 90 degrees outside, bright sunshine, dry as heck out there. And this is the first time we really, especially on the downhills, had to take care on like going over the rocks. I'm usually really, really good and fast at running over, like doing the trail runs and the rocky runs and all that. And I was definitely, my motto on the downhill going over these rocky areas was don't be a hero and don't be a statistic. Because there are a couple areas where it was super, super easy to step on one of those wrong, slip out, and you could have some actual serious issues on some of those downhills if you didn't take them with enough care to go through. So that was one of the interesting parts. And the sandbag stuff, I know there's probably going to be a big debate on that sandbag carry. I know it wound up being on my watch exactly a tenth of a mile long. So you go down 80 yards, you come up 80 yards, and that was it. And this is like the sandbag carry that is known as being the hardest in the world. And I think this is one of those that no one's ever going to be happy with. When you do, if you have like an older runner like me who's been doing this for like 7, 8 years, whatever it's been. I started 2018, so 8 years now. Where you're used to having go all the way down that thing. You do that climb at champions coming back up. You're just kind of used to seeing that type of thing. But at the same time, if you haven't been doing this before, you're not quite in shape. You go down there, you may drop the sandbag carrier. You say, I'm not going to be able to get this back up, and so you abandon those down there. So the staff has to go and get those things back up in the end, and that becomes a hassle. So the next year they come back and say, well, we can't handle having so many people abandon those. They make it easier the next year. And then like the old school guys like me come back in and start arguing. Like, no, it's not the same. You got to bring it back. So it's always kind of one of those tug of wars on what's going to win. And this just kind of, I think, wound up being a little more on the easier side than it probably needed to be on this front. But it's one of those, you're never going to make everybody happy. I understand that. I worked at a track summer camp one time where I was in charge of doing the high jump for guys who were like anywhere from like 8 years old to like 15 years old. And like you can only set the bar. You have to set the bar once and have people kind of go over it. It was just like one of those, you can't make everybody happy all the time. So I understand that one. But at least on those, they did keep the sandbags, I think, dry yesterday when it rained. Because when they got to the sled pull, I think that was the hardest sled pull I've ever done before. It was still doable, but that one had some weight to it. And although you'll see this in the video when it comes out later on this week, I'll give you the sneak preview on that Herc hoist. This is 158-pound, whatever it was at that point in time, me putting my entire body weight on that Herc hoist. I lean back, and it just didn't move. It was one of those sinking. You're hanging there going like, well, that's interesting. I love when courses just have like these random moments like, yeah, okay, now what? Oh, we had some good times. It was some good times. I had a fun time. Listen, if it wasn't for my energy issue of just not eating enough this week and putting enough fuel in my system going to this race, this was a really fun race. Had some really derpy moments like that, but I just had a really good time on this one. And yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to put out there for today. Was, yes, I know they had the registration thing, but overall I think this was a really well designed course. I think this was a really well designed event. I had a really good time on this. I hope you guys had a really good time if you're here. And I hope I can convey that when I put out the actual video this week. I did have the GoPro on the entire time. I caught literally the entire course is now on my computer set up ready to go. So I just gonna need to parse through all that. And just give it a couple days. I will have a video going out there to kind of cover everything. So I had fun. Hope you had fun. And hope you're looking forward to the next one that goes out, the next video that goes out here. It should be a good time. And until then, and until that video comes, enjoy.